everyone, and welcome back to BS Rambles. Today, in celebration of the Stukov patch going live, I want to go over one of the major changes in this patch, and that is the adjustment to Hanamura. First, I want to detail the individual changes and what they mean. At the end, I'll discuss how this is going to affect the overall strategy and the meta of new Hanamura. So with that, I'll dive right in, starting with what I consider to be the most important change, and that is the removal of sappers. If you didn't know, previously when you destroyed a fort and a keep, your minion waves would spawn with sappers, which if they reached your core, or the enemy's core, would deal 1 damage to it. The removal of these sappers represents a major blow to the push meta on Hanamura. The second biggest change is the increase in experience granted by capturing carts. The reason this is such a big deal is because on old Hanamura it was almost never worth pushing for early carts, because you would be missing out on too much experience in the lane. Not to mention you'd be losing manpower in the lane that would be better spent pushing forts and keeps. Now that the carts are worth 1200 experience, they are much more valuable early game and well worth sending 1 or 2 players out of the lane to retrieve the cart even if they will only deal 1 damage to the enemy's core. The third change is a few adjustments to the mercenary camps, the most noteworthy being a major nerf to the support camp. They've reduced its initial spawn time by 15 seconds, giving it 10% less health, 12% less damage, and 60% less scaling damage, and finally a 2-second increase on the heal's cooldown. The original intent of the support camp was for it to feel almost like a mini-boss that came with a massive reward, that reward being the excellent area of effect heal over time that has potential to swing entire teamfights. The problem with this is that characters with Bribe were able to exploit the fact that it's a single unit, and with only 1 charge of Bribe, they get the full camp's experience and its reward. This was so strong that it was almost mandatory to have a hero with Bribe on your team, or you could count on the enemy's hero with Bribe stealing your support camp all game. By tuning down the support camp's damage and health, it'll make it easier for teams without Bribe to down the support camp in a more timely fashion, which will add a little bit more flexibility to the meta as well as some balance. The second Merc camp change is to the Fortification Camp, or as everyone calls it in-game, the turret. The turret camp itself is unchanged, but the power-up has received some major buffs. It now will prioritize damaging heroes over minions, has been given a 10% increase in maximum health, and will do 200% extra damage to minions. The reason I think Blizzard has made these changes is to help eliminate the stalemates that happen when pushing payloads through lanes. It's advantageous to defend payloads in lanes where you can soak experience while denying the enemy team damage to your core. With these new buffs, placing a turret on the payload should tip the balance more in the favor of the offending team, which will in turn reduce the frequency of these stalemates. The final and probably least impactful change to Hanamura is the addition of 1 extra health to the core, which will now have 8 health. This is another move made by Blizzard to refocus the map on pushing payloads. By reducing the potential core damage gain from pushing to only 4, which would require downing both forts and both keeps, even the strongest push comp will be forced to engage more in pushing payloads. Now I think these are all very positive changes. The problem with the old Hanamura is that it was quickly exposed by competitive players as a map that revolved around lane dominance while the map's intended objective took a back seat. Early payloads were simply not worth it when you could power up later payloads and gain an experience advantage simply by pushing down the lane, especially when you are rewarded by core damaging sappers at the end of the push. The only time it would be worthwhile to leave lane would be to send someone to quickly bribe the support camp to aid in the push. I believe with these new changes, Hanamura has been refocused into the teamfight jungle-centric map that it was always intended to be, and that a much more flexible meta is now going to be free to develop. Gone are the days of the mandatory push comp with a bribe hero. I'm not saying that's going to be obsolete, it will still be a very viable strategy, but now teams are going to be much more free to leave the lane and push the payloads early and treat this map as the isolation teamfight map that was intended to be, not too unlike Warhead Junction or Dragonshire. And that, you guys, concludes my thoughts on the changes to Hanamura. I hope that you found that valuable or at very least entertaining, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe as I'm going to continue to make videos like this in the future, as well as my usual build guides for heroes. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great week.